Hello, everybody. This is Dr. Ellie Harper, the human flow psychologist, and you are listening to another episode of The Truth About Mental Health. And I am joined again today by Pastor Joel Swakowski and Pastor Jonathan Fries, co-hosts of the What the Flock and Music of Life Church podcast. How are you both doing?
Wonderful.
Yeah, we're doing great. Thanks for having us.
Oh, it's my absolute pleasure. So I just want to let you know that I was having a little bit of a throwback to the last time that we met, which was in person. And today, in preparation for this podcast, I'm wearing Joel's t-shirt.
Yay! Wonderful. Yes, proof.
And I'm
yes,
and I'm
you were here at one point.
I'm drinking from Jonathan's mug.
Oh, wow.
Wow. Yeah, I remember that mug.
Wonderful.
Yeah, so anybody in the Wisconsin region who's willing to host me, I'm an amazing house guest. I just steal things from where you live.
I should have said, wait, where did you get that mug from? What do you mean you have my mug? Is that where it went?
Really, like, I knew I was missing a t-shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolute pleasure to have you both on today. And I just want to ask you both, are you ready? Are you ready for this interview?
Well, I don't know anymore. Most people don't ask us if we're ready. I don't know what you're going to throw at us, but yeah, I think we can handle you.
Let's go.
Bring it on.
Okay, let's go. So, in terms of this interview, I'm going to ask you a question about season 7 of your podcast, and then I'm going to kind of like take it a little bit broader, because I just want to take a moment to acknowledge that this is the end of this project, right? You know, like 7 seasons of 2 podcasts. I'm not sure how many episodes that is, but wow, what a journey. How do you both feel like now that you've kind of come to the end of this project?
Wonderful. Yeah, I feel great. I mean, the journey of putting this all together and recording and editing and publishing was great. Now there's a whole other level of satisfaction knowing that this art has been completed and there's this resource that's just out there available to people for as long as the internet survives. So yeah, I feel wonderful about it.
Yeah, we can just sit back and collect all those royalties that we're going to be getting. Just sitting back and just watching that our bank accounts grow like 2 pastors should.
Maybe we should listen to the church versus business episode and the tithing episode.
Yeah, you know what? It's amazing to have done 7 seasons and now to sit back and go, I wonder what's going to happen now. Mm-hmm. You know, like this thing could have a life of its own where it could be found many, many, many years later and people go, have you listened to this podcast? And yeah, it is cool to have something that's done and completed, and then it's like a great TV show that's been done for a long time. And to be able to go back and watch the whole thing, just binge it all is so much fun. Like I love that. I love that about Seinfeld, that it's done and it's there and you can watch anything. And so, you know, the first time you watch it, you just can blast through all of these episodes and go on a journey. And then you find your favorite episodes, you might watch them again, you might skip some, but you start to develop this grid. Or like, you know, a TV show like The Office is another one that's so great. Breaking Bad, you know, all these shows that are so rewatchable. It's going to be interesting to see if this podcast is one of those or if it is instantly forgotten about.
Well, yes, and time will tell. But you know, and it's funny, Jonathan. I'm going to come back to this point. You've actually kind of started answering my final question.
Cool. Yeah.
What's your favorite TV show? No,
Sounds about right. No.
spoil it. Yeah.
British Office or American Office?
Both excellent in their own ways. That's my.
Oh, very political. Very political
Way to stay on
answer.
the fence there.
There you go.
Yeah.
You must be a
Yeah.
doctor. That was very smart. Very smart answer.
Okay, so I do have a question for you about season 7. So in season 7, you know, you addressed these controversial topics. Every week I was listening to these episodes. You know, you covered, you know, what it means to be a man, what it means to be a woman. You covered the, you know, kind of LGBTQ plus community, suicide, Christian counseling, all these, you know, vaccines, all these different controversial topics. And you know, and as you have a tendency to do, give us the ultimate answer, right, in terms of how to handle these. So yeah, one of the questions I wanted to ask you is, out of these topics, can you give an example of an area where you have got this wrong, okay, in terms of how you handled an interaction where you were, you know, needed to talk about one of these topics? So just to give you an example, say for me, you know, I mean, there were things that stood out every week, but for me, an area was vaccines. So through, you know, the COVID pandemic, and I know that vaccines goes beyond that, but through the COVID pandemic, I chose not to take a vaccine. And I had plenty of people in, you know, my immediate family, in my friendship group who did. And it was incredibly tense talking about this. And I, you know, I dreaded it. Anytime anybody asked me, like, oh, have you had your jab yet? You know, have you had your vaccine yet? And I'd be like, no. I'm kind of dreading what is going to come next. And there were times, you know, during that where it did kind of come to arguments. Well, you know, and I'd be saying kind of, you know, I didn't take it because I don't feel like there's enough evidence that, you know, it's going to be the best thing to do, and then, you know, felt like I received a lot of judgment from people who had taken the vaccine, and I don't feel like I responded very well to that. And then I think I could be judgmental of people who had, you know, rather than trying to understand them. So that was an area where I was definitely getting things wrong. And the way that I responded to that was, just don't talk about it. Just do not mention vaccines, you know, and try and avoid conversations when that did come up. So that's definitely an area where I, you know, was getting that wrong. So I wanted to ask you both, yeah, is there a topic in here where previously you have got it wrong in terms of how you handled one of these controversial topics?
Oh, I'll go right away, and I'll say, you know, I remember having several conversations about LGBTQ plus topics, and people asked our church's stance, my stance on where I'm at. You know, people will say, do you support LGBTQ plus community? Is that a community that you support? And I would just answer the question and go forward with my answer to that question without first understanding what somebody meant by all of the words that they're using. Or if somebody will come up to me and say, do you believe someone who is a part of the LGBTQ plus community, if I identify that, are they living in sin? Yes or no? And just answering that question. Ellie, there's never been a conversation with somebody who started with that has ever gone well, in my opinion. Like, all that I felt from either side of the conjunctive, in support, against, sin, not sin, if the conversation begins like that, I have entered into that conversation way too many times answering questions, and all it's done is cause massive amounts of damage. And so, I'll get labeled as one side or the other. If somebody's on one side, I'll get labeled the other side. And what I've learned through this season of trying to understand somebody is, instead of immediately answering it, asking them, what do they mean by the words they're using? And we have a lot of different words to define if somebody comes up to me and says, is this a sin or not? Because we need to know what sin is. We need to know, we need to have
What
a
this
measure.
is.
Right, what this is, like I need to have a
Whatever the
definition
topic.
for, if somebody says support, do you support this community? I need to know what they mean by support. And so there's that is something that I've made a lot of mistakes in. So now I know to take some backward steps. And if somebody's asking me a question to put me in a category, one way or the other, one question, that to me is just so abusive. The way that you answer one question is going to cause me to judge all of your beliefs. And that's what happens with these really sensitive topics, is that you answer it one way and I get to judge all of your beliefs. So instead of doing that, now I'm taking backward steps to go, if you want to talk about this, let's answer all of these questions. Because really what you don't want me to judge, right? You want to find out if I am a judgmental person, or if I am, pursuing God, or if I care about people. Awesome. Let's find that same thing about you by answering all of these questions in order to have this conversation, which is very much about what season 7 is all about. If you want to have this topic, if you want to have a season 7 conversation, do you have the foundation that has been built through 7 seasons to be able to do this? Or is it just not worth it to you? Do you have another objective?
Yeah, good answer. I like the way you worded the question, Ellie. I like the way you answered, Jonathan, because I think you both proved that you understand what season 7 is really about. And it's not about what the specific answer is for the topic. It's about that backward step of how do we handle, like your question, how do we handle these topics? And so really, I think I could say I've done all of them wrong if you look at it from that lens. I've handled all of these topics wrong. Every time I've went into a topic trying to be understood as a first step, instead of looking to understand the other person. Or every time I've tried to prove my point and not given the other person an opportunity to be heard, I've handled them wrong. But I have an example to actually answer your question. Abortion is one that really comes to mind for me. Going as far back as I remember in high school having like a debate class. And that was like, abortion became one of the topics that our teacher had us pick a side and argue. She didn't ask what you believe, but she said she assigned people to certain sides of the topic, all kind of lumped into the two major, like pro-life, pro-choice. And it was very much like this was the precedent that was set for me of like, this is how we handle this topic, is you root yourself on one side of the argument and you argue for yours and you argue against the other, but you don't try to hear the other. And, I guess moving on in life though, as I grew into, being 18 and older and I started voting, the abortion topic became very, polarizing as far as the political world goes too. So that's where this topic of abortion is in and of itself something that's really hard to discuss with people. But it also is so closely related to the politics, which is a whole other topic that's really hard for people to talk about, which then gets into voting, which is a whole other topic. So it's like you end up being judged for what your political party is based on what side of this argument you land on. And I was very guilty of being one of those people where it's like, okay, I guess if I'm going to be like conservative or Republican, then I have to vote for the person who's going to ban abortion. Like that's what it comes down to. So that was very much my philosophy, and that would have been my argument. And my argument with anybody about this topic, when it did come up, would have just simply been on the side of abortion's murder. There's no arguing against that. So very stubborn perspective. And I think a lot of season 7 really changed my brain, even just recording those episodes. So I think it's gotten a lot healthier for me to really be in a position. It's humbling. It was a humbling experience to go through all of these topics from the approach of essentially, by the end of the episode, coming to the realization is I don't know everything about this topic, and I need to keep that in mind when I'm interacting with anybody, regardless of what they believe. They might have some information that I don't have. And if I'm too stubborn to hear it, then I'm the one losing out. And I'm really close to, or already crossed the line of judging that person. So yeah, abortion would have been the one that I think I've had the most experience being wrong in the past.
Okay. And so in season 7, you gave the listeners this, answer to how to deal with these controversial topics through grace, taking direction from God, through love, giving without expecting anything in return, and through leadership, right? Facilitating the purpose and the progress of, the other person. And I absolutely love that. But I also know that we're all human beings, and there can be, things with these controversial topics which will bring up very strong emotions for us.
Mm-hmm.
So even if you're using these doctrine, grace, love, leadership to handle these situations, as human beings, we're still going to feel the emotion. If somebody projects on us or tells us what we ought to think, or asks a question that is asking us to go one way or another. So I want to ask you both, how do you handle that emotion when you feel it? Because you are human beings, right?
According to the facts of my life, yes, I am a human being.
So
I swallow it and push it down to my toes.
Yeah, right.
Well, I think we have a lot of tools that we use to help people with all the major parts of their brain, and how these parts lead to emotion, feelings, extreme or otherwise, positive or negative. And we do have techniques that we use to help people depending on their uniqueness, depending on where their beliefs lie, depending on what their experiences have been growing up or in their history. But I guess for me, a lot of that has been really being rehearsed as well as I can going into situations like this. And, a lot of this like self-talk or rehearsal of like, okay, like Joel, what's your objective in this situation? Just hear the other person. And even though, season 7, like you're right, Ellie, even though we have this great approach of let's try to understand this other person, even when I have that objective, it doesn't mean that prevents me from feeling the arrows that are coming at me when somebody does say something that triggers me. So I just try to cope with using the techniques I've learned as far as rehearsing and how to absorb that tension and hold on to that tension. And I think a great technique that I've learned is a lot of times, what do we want? That emotion comes out usually through words, right? We get that emotional response. We still end up using our words in that moment. One of the simplest techniques I've been taught is whatever you want to say, whatever you're feeling, and whatever you want to say through that, try to push it through a question. And that usually does a good job of like at the very least, preventing any damage. And just, not trying to ignore your feelings, but just trying to channel them the right way and stay focused and not allow them to be in control of me, but me in control of how I respond to it.
Amazing. Yeah, I love that, Joel. Thank you. Yeah, Jonathan, how do you deal with those like intense emotions when talking about these controversial topics?
I usually just hit record on a podcast and then just record it all so that everybody can hear it forever. No, I do the very opposite of that. Usually strong emotions. It's like, who is the expressing the strong emotion? Is that for the benefit of somebody else? It can be, when I'm performing music, how do I express those strong emotions? Like through song, but people are there to have an experience, so I can express them that way. Same thing with like if you're preaching or if you're teaching, like if you have strong emotions and it is for that person's benefit to express them, then express it. If it's not for the benefit of that person that you express those emotions, then my advice would be to find, and what I do is I have people that I can express my strong emotions with. And it is usually away from other people where only me and maybe that other person or those few people can handle it. And then I just let them rip. So, I think of the story about Jesus going out into the wilderness after he does, after he teaches or after he's healing a bunch of people, he goes, I'm going to go off into the wilderness to pray. We don't get a huge glimpse into what those conversations were with Jesus and God, but I imagine that he's expressing quite a bit of pain and frustration, and being a human walking on earth. It's like there wasn't anybody for Jesus to rely upon, but he went away from other people who couldn't necessarily handle that. He went away with other people, and then he had time with God. And that kind of is a bummer for Jesus that he didn't really have anybody on earth to really express that with. But I think we as believers, we can have each other, especially people who are mature in the faith, to be able to express that with. And so, I've developed a whole process for dealing with my emotions and sharing them. And I usually just will get alone with somebody and say, hey, do you have some time? Can I just complain? Can I just get all my thoughts out? I'm going to say a bunch of wrong things, and would you just hear me? And then I just let it rip. So yeah, that's kind of how I handle it, Ellie. I think we need to be really careful, but I think there are times when we can do that for the benefit of other people. And I've had to learn who to express my strong emotions to and whose benefit is it for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So again, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm going big picture here. But what I've heard you both say there is in terms of handling those intense emotions that can be brought up by these controversial topics, whether, as you said, Joel, it's through asking a question and channel that through a question, kind of say what you want to say, but do it through a question. And Jonathan, kind of, as you said, kind of finding the people in your life, the people that are going to provide that safe space for you to just be able to share. But it sounds to me like in both ways, it comes down to healthy communication.
Yeah.
Good. I'm just going to take those nods.
Yes, it
Right?
does. It does come back. It comes back to healthy communication.
Healthy communication.
And who that communication is going towards.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you. I really appreciate that, because one of the things that I'm very passionate about in terms of helping people is with the application of something. How do I do this? So yeah, that was amazing. I feel like you've both given some ways there that people can actually put this into practice and deal with just that human emotion side of things when these topics come up. So thank you so much. So kind of zooming out now in terms of these podcasts as a whole entity. I want to ask you, so you've had 7 seasons of What the Flock and 7 seasons of the Malt podcast. I want to ask you, what was your personal favorite episode? Sorry, personal favorite season, and why? Okay, so I have just like jotted down a list here because I felt like the first season was all about these as I've written it down here as low hanging fruit, right? Like the topic that
Thank you.
the topics that when it comes to the church kind of can be very difficult topics for people to talk about, because you had drinking in there, smoking, tattoos, sex before marriage, all these different types of things. Then you had season 2, which was about God's nature as the overall theme. You had season 3, which was about what do I do kind of after salvation, like after I'm saved. Season 4 was all about the church and how church ought to work and operate. Season 5 all about God's will. Season 6 about repairing the reputation of the Bible, and then of course season 7, these controversial topics. So my next question is, what was your favorite season and why?
Yeah, that's tough. Not because I'm one of those people that has a hard time answering favorite questions. I can care less. Like I'm fine with that. I really just don't know which my favorite is. I would say if I had to pick, I'd say season 6. Couple reasons. I think the main reason, though, I'll give you the main reason, is it transcends the season itself. Like the steps we gave not only work in the episodes and in the Bible verses we specifically covered, but the steps we gave are applicable to the entire Bible and will help people interpret the Bible the right way, even in the many more verses that are in the Bible than we didn't cover. And in fact, so I'm talking myself into why this is my favorite one. Yeah, because I was
have to support it.
For real. I was talking to my friend Tim Burke. Props to Tim Burke.
I love Tim too.
Shout out to Tim.
What a good guy. Anyways, we were just talking yesterday, and he was bringing up some of these ancient historical texts that he'll have conversations with people. It's like, a lot of the origin. How did this begin? How did we all get here? How can you trust these old manuscripts and these old, historical, texts? And he brought up some ancient historical texts that somebody brought up to him. He's like, yeah, this friend of his brought up like these old Sumerian historical texts that apparently date further back than the Bible. It's just like, he's just asking me my opinion. How would you approach that? And I said, Tim, first off, my respect and love and belief in the Bible has nothing to do with how old it is. It doesn't matter to me. Like, this is in a competition over what's the first written document we found as far as its legitimacy goes. I said, what I would do is the same thing we do with the Bible. Somebody wants to talk about something in the history of the Sumerian history books. What does it say? The first step is open it up. Is like, because they're also what? Wait, like I don't know. I've never read it before. Have you read it before, or are you just like quoting something or referencing something you heard from someone else? Like, first step, let's open it. So not only did those steps that we gave apply to the Bible and help people understand the Bible at the, that doctrine or truth level, but those are really the interpretation steps for any text. And if you want to understand anything to the truth level, then the ditty gives you these 5 steps to use. You just change
that's
out
what you were gonna say, that was why that was your favorite part.
Because of the ditty.
Because of the ditty.
Because that is really, that's what I was getting to. So because of the ditty is really why. All the other stuff is just like icing on the ditty cake. But it is. So that's where it's like, I think season 6 and season 7 in particular had a specific twist to them that each episode not only handled itself and was a standalone episode, but there was some deeper lesson being taught that was transcended the topic itself, that allowed the listener to use that tool, that deeper tool, in areas that are outside of the podcast itself. So I think that's why. And I'm a doctrine guy more than a Bible guy. I love the Bible and I know the Bible well. But at the core, I'm a doctrine guy. So that's why what that season did is it really helped people get to the doctrine of the Bible, which is where my passion is. So season 6.
Yeah,
That's cool.
Makes sense. Yeah, Jonathan, how about for you?
I think it was season 5. To the God's will. The reason why I like it is because we talk about in that podcast how you know something's God and not human, and how God goes about, accomplishing his will. So I feel like we really understand the person of God. So God's nature, I feel like we understand the foundation of God. And I think in season 5, we understand like the person of God. I think we really get to know how God does what he does and how he wants us to be like him in how he acts. So I feel like we get a really good sense of God's personality and truly what he's after. So it brings a lot of color to the principles and the foundation of God. And being a compassion person that I am, it's like understanding the creator of the universe and just how much he wants to encourage us and how he wants us to involve other people and himself in what it is we do, and how, there's like, he knows us more than anybody else, yet he knows how fragile and broken we are. So he's not surprised in like how much we need each other and how much we need him. And that what we see in season 5 is that there's nothing that God requires of us that he himself has not done. That he is perfectly right and perfectly just in everything that he does, yet he gives other people the opportunity to be a part of what it is that he's doing. So to me, it was so exciting to learn about that and to get a whole new sense of, wow, and I think that's what it did to me, is this is causing me to look up to God more. I like God more. Like, ooh, you know what? If he's not actually real, I really like him.
Right.
Like, and I don't want
him has made my life better.
I know, and I don't want anything else besides him. People will say, well, what if you believe in the wrong God? What if you're not, then I guess I don't, but I want to be with that. I want to be with that one. The one that we talk about in season 5 is the one I want to be with. So if he's a different way, if he's much more of a bully and much more of a boss and less merciful, and if he doesn't want to hang out with his son's bride for all of eternity and play, then I don't really want to be with that God. But because I think that God, wants us all to just be jacked up and happy and loving our life for all of eternity, I go, yeah, I want that. I want that God. I want that dad. I want that grandpa. I want that life forever. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my heart feels really full, kind of like listening to you both, But I'm going to go off piste for a moment here. This isn't a question that I'd planned to ask, but you know, just in your response there, Jonathan, I want to ask this to you both. Like, do you ever have moments where you kind of question, but you know, where you question things, where you question like, like, is this actually true? Is this the truth? Like, am I following the right God? Am I like going down the right path? Do you have moments like that?
I think I do. I mean, the eternal ramifications of getting the answer wrong, and not being on the narrow path. It's like all I feel like, Ellie, is that I feel like I have the best answer, but I don't have all the information. So I'm just constantly like, with the information that I have, I believe until I get a better answer, I'm on the right path. But I could definitely be wrong in all of this. So it puts me in a place of, hey, I know that there has to be a first cause. Why? Because no other answer makes sense. Is there another answer? I not to the fact that there needs to be a first cause, so it's just like that, where it's like I am being contrastive on my beliefs. And just because I don't have all the information does not make me just wait around to have all the information to take action. So I am going forward with the information that I have, and the information that I believe in my beliefs causes me to increase in energy and life and joy over time. And that to me makes me go, I think I really truly believe that I'm on the right path. However, I could be wrong in something, and I am wrong every day about something. So what do? I adjust and I move forward. And it's not this devastating, garment renting experience. It's, oh, that's a new piece of information. I didn't know that. That's painful. Let's make our adjustment and go forward. So yeah, I think I do. I think I do question my beliefs, and I think that is actually the healthy way to live. Not, I know the answer, I have the truth, I can't be wrong. It's like, whoa, that person I'm worried about, not the person that goes, I'm going forward with what I believe to be true. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm with Jonathan there. One of the things, with especially the 4 principles that determine truth. That's what I love about those 4 principles presented in Modeling God. We talked about them at length in the podcast. That was in the God's Will season, right? Season 5.
Mm-hmm.
Contrastive thinking is what trumps every other model for determining truth. Because what it does is it invites everybody and all information to prove itself wrong. Like, I don't know any other model that does that. And that's how God operates, through a contrastive method. So what I'm hearing, I'm gonna side with Jonathan, but I'm gonna add a little bit here, because I don't want people to think that Jonathan's wavering in his walk with the Lord. Not that he said anything that should make people feel that way. But Jonathan, what I heard Jonathan saying, what I believe as well, is we're sitting in a position where we're very confident in the belief that we don't have it all figured out. We're very confident in the belief that even though we do believe in God, we don't know how he works completely. And there will always be things we'll learn more, and there's always things within us that we'll have to change and adjust. But it's been a long, long time since I've questioned God's existence. And I wasn't confident in that there is a higher power that is right and just, that created everything, that is the first cause, that does want me to live a certain life. Now, my understanding of how all that works changes, and my confidence in that can be high, but never to the point where I'm like, oh, I'm good now, I have it. but yeah, it's been, and I would say Jonathan would feel the same way as what I said about, it's been a long time since either of us have questioned, like, but is God real? And does he exist? Does he want me to live this life? Like, but at the same time, I'm with Jonathan where it's like, if you could give me some information better than what I have that proves me wrong about all this stuff, great. But because I found the journey, the journey that has led me to being happy and joyful and having purpose, fulfilled, has been a journey of being contrastive on my own beliefs. And that means I'll be contrastive on all of them, including the most deeply held, including the ones that I haven't. It's not that I'm not questioning whether or not God exists. It's just it hasn't been something I'm not confident that's true. Like, I will question it, sure, and we can talk about it and debate it or argue over it. But it's been a long time since I've doubted it. I haven't doubted his existence. I've been very assured of it. Like, and because I'm serious, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, when's the last time I had one of those existential moments where I'm like, is this stuff even real? Is this even true? It's been a long time since I've done that.
Mm-hmm.
A long time. But that's different than what Jonathan's saying as far as like, do I have this all right? Am I wrong? Those are two very different things. The existential argument is, how does this all work? The humility argument is, do I know how this all works? So yeah, we're both very much, we don't know how it all works. And that's why I love Jonathan's answer. Season 5 so good, because it does kind of present that, like, here's a glimpse into how some of this works, the mechanism, right? That doesn't mean we have it all figured out. But I do really believe there is an answer. I do believe God exists. And I will surely talk to you about whether or not that's true. And I'll even put myself on the side of trying to argue that he doesn't. I think there's a lot of mental health benefits to doing that. But yeah, I think a lot of it just comes down to really, really training our brains to operate according to those 4 principles. We're, trying to identify contradictions in our own beliefs. We're trying to improve ourselves by finding out where we're wrong, which means we ought never to have a season in life where we're thinking, okay, now I have it all, I'm good. And I don't need to question what I believe anymore. That would be dangerous.
I like that pulling apart of doubt, doubt versus questioning. Yeah, I think that was really good, Joel. And I love to use the argument about questioning or discussing whether or not God exists as a huge big picture, a ramification. Like, I'm with you. Like, nothing else makes sense. But would I love to hear information about how God doesn't exist? Would that be interesting? Sure. Yeah. I'd love to hear new information about why people think he doesn't exist. Yeah, that would be interesting to me. New information, not the same argument, but new information, because we've gotten so many answers. We've gotten answers about who we are as people. And if I think what Joel and I are doing is we're looking for those answers about who we are, about who God is, about how he works, and there's always more in front of us. So therefore our understanding is incomplete. However, what we have is I feel like it's making our brains work better. Your beliefs ought to make your brain work better, ought to make you feel better, not because you're distracting yourself from thinking, but because you're able to think deeper more often and even look at your beliefs at a higher level, at a deeper level as well.
Yeah, I really like that as well. That's separating out of like doubt and questioning. So I feel like I'm the same. Like I don't doubt the existence of God. Like it's only been in fairly recent years that I've called that God, and but I always had, before that, I might not have said, used the word God, but I had a sense that there was a higher power. A lot of people refer to it as source, the universe, all this kind of thing. But I love that, because I feel like I've always had faith in that area, and actually the questioning is more about me and how I'm living my life and my beliefs, and do they fit with what is right, what's just, and when they don't, that is going to cause questions. And I just wanted to share really quickly. I think I've got a 7-year-old daughter, Greta, and she a couple of years ago at school started having like religious education, and she came home and she asked me, "Mum, do you believe in God?" And I said yes. And then, as I had the opportunity, I asked her, "Do you believe in God?" And she said yes. And I said, "Why?" And her answer to me was, "Because somebody created this beautiful world."
Yeah. There's a
From the
cause.
mouth of babes. The
Yep.
mouth of babes.
Right? That was a couple of years ago, probably like 5-6 years old, and it's like, boom, there it is.
Profound.
Yes. Oh, thank you so much. But yeah, as I said, I wasn't planning on kind of going down that route, but I was really interested just to see what your feelings are on that, because I think sometimes people can get caught up in questioning things, and it's not that it's wrong to question things. We should be doing that, right? We should, questioning our own thoughts, being contrastive, looking at different perspectives, and that's okay. Yeah. Yeah. In fact, that's good. It's healthy.
Well, I think parents should be teaching their kids how to do that. Like, question me about my actions and my decisions towards you in your life. Like, let's discuss what you think is good for you, and I will discuss with you what I think is good for you. And God talks about that. We can reason together. Let us reason together. I think there's a lot of parents, especially in the church. I'll tell you what, a lot of parents that don't want to be questioned by their kids, don't want to debate, don't want to have discussions, don't want to be questioned. They feel disrespected. And that is such a shame. That's why kids will leave the church. That's one reason for kids to leave the church, is because it's like, wait, your parent is supposed to represent God to you. It's supposed to represent what's right and just. Your parents do. And if your kids aren't experiencing that from a parent because I said so, or don't question me, I'm the parent, you're the child, and then they're going to transfer all of that towards God and go, yuck, I don't want that.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. We ought to be, as a parent myself, like we ought to be open, right, to having these questions brought to us, sometimes being able to just say, "Do you know what? I'm not sure," or I don't know what the answer is. And also, things like being able to admit that we're wrong. That's something that I feel like I'm growing in as a parent myself at the moment. With my daughter, like when she does get something wrong and she comes to me and says that to me, I'm like, affirming her for that, thank you so much for letting me know, and yeah. Oh my goodness, gosh, we could go down so many routes with this conversation today, but I'm gonna come back on script, okay? Because I've got a couple more questions that I'd like to ask you. So one of the things that I've absolutely loved about these podcasts, as well as just all the information that you're sharing, all the teaching, all the applications, it has been, I will say, transformational for me, life-changing for me in terms of the way that you've presented things. But one of the things that has also fascinated me about this podcast is the relationship between Jonathan and Joel. So I think that you're very different people. I think that I think I think your approach to the topics, I think I'm in a fortunate position. This is the 4th time now, I think, that I've interviewed you, and we have like friendships outside of this as well. So I've got to know you both better. But I've just been fascinated about how this works. These two unique individuals, and you've shared with me before, Jonathan, more on the natural, on the cherishing side of things, Joel more naturally on the nourishing side of things. But I wanted to ask you, what is something that through this process of doing these podcasts together, through through this project, what is something that you've learned about the other? Yeah. What have you learned about each other through doing these podcasts?
This a lot. The thing is, like, I think a lot of the things I've learned about him in this podcast, I'm not sure if I learned these things about him in this podcast or if it was before and I'm just getting more used to it or confirmed. But Jonathan's ability to just improv is something that definitely, like this is something I've known about him, but that's the first thing that came to mind. And as we do 7 seasons over, I don't know, what is it, like 4 years or so of work, you develop a process. Our process was great, right? We did a lot of work to, especially up front, to determine how we're going to do this, what's our process, and then nail it down so that we can just stick to our process. And there's really 2 things. Jonathan, part of the process is to keep him in the dark as much as possible. It's like, I'm a heavy rehearsal guy, and a lot of what my job was, especially in the what the flock side of things, was to have everything written out, outlined out really well, because we have to hit these certain notes. And Jonathan was like, most of the time I hadn't even looked at the notes until we hit record. And you never know it. Well, I would never know it. But that's me as somebody who needs a lot of preparation and appreciates that. But he's just so able to just be that guy who's like on the spot in the moment, ready to give an answer and to give a quality answer. And a lot of it was setting me up too. So that always struck me. There's certain times in certain episodes I'll even listen, and it's like, there's certain sections of episodes where I would say things he wasn't ready for, and his response would be great. And he'd always add flavor that just wasn't there in the outlines. A lot of what Jonathan brought to the table was stuff that wasn't outlined out. So the majority of what Jonathan did was his just ability to improv with the best of them. And what his ability to improv does is, it is as cool as it is to see him do that, it actually brings the best out of the people he's with. That's really the gold in Jonathan's ability to improvise, is it brings the best out of everybody else around him. It sets everybody else up around him. In addition to that is, Jonathan's one of the smartest men I know. And if these podcasts don't show that, then I don't know what would, because I know we say he's on the cherishing side. He's this care bear. He's real sensitive, all this stuff. But and he'll be the first to tell you, his brain doesn't work as fast as some of the other smart people he hangs out with. But Jonathan's brilliant, not only artistically, but also, logically and scientifically and theologically. He's getting embarrassed. Yeah. So it's like, I don't, for instance, like, I know I'm smart and I know a lot of doctrine and theology. I don't ever have to hold back talking to Jonathan about this stuff. So that would be the things I think, like I said, I don't know if those things were the origin of me learning those things was necessarily the podcast, but definitely things that stand out to me as things that I've grown to know more about Jonathan through this project.
Thanks, Joel. That's so sweet.
Thank you. Yeah.
What have I learned about Joel?
Yes.
Nothing. Next question.
Moving on. Are we done with this interview yet?
Yeah. You know what? Joel, he really wants to have fun. Like Joel, I think he comes in so tight. You know, he's a teacher. He wants to understand. He wants to explain things. But I do not think people understand just how much Joel wants to have fun and laugh. And he comes in tight at pretty much every interaction we have, because he's just, he's chugging information, he's planning a lot, he's got a lot of responsibility, he's got a lot on his plate. But what he really wants is somebody who takes him, you could say the right amount of serious, or doesn't take him too seriously. I think Joel wants to be understood, but he doesn't actually want someone to go in their shell when he is really tight and really, when he comes in very direct with understanding. Because truly what Joel wants to do is he really wants to laugh and have fun. Like, we went on a trip to Scotland, and Joel was always like 3 seconds away from bursting out laughing because he just had so much fun. And it was like, Joel got to teach up a storm on that trip, but it's being able to teach. It's almost like, okay, I got to teach, I got to learn something. Okay, great. That's done. Now let's have a pile of fun. It's almost like Joel needs that. He like, what is this about? Did we understand something? Okay, check. Now let's have a blast. Now we can talk about whatever. We can keep talking about that. But you have a great moment with Joel, and it's like he wants to be at that place where you're just hanging out, because now you can commentate on how great that single moment was. And you can still talk about that over and over and over again. So I think Joel needs somebody who will just not take him too seriously, who's gonna loosen him up. Another thing I learned about Joel is he's like, he shows angry compassion to people. Okay.
I can't wait to hear this. I'm learning about myself right now.
He will yell at you because you are doing like too much. You're doing this, and you should be doing this. And it's like he's showing compassion to you. Like, it doesn't make sense why you're doing this, Jonathan. It doesn't make sense why why you keep saying that you're not a good improver when you are. And he will like yell at you because he wants you to understand this thing. But it's like, wait, what? Take a step back here. Like, go past Joel's approach. Like, so the emotion is coming out by him because you don't understand something. And it's frustrating for him that you don't understand this. So it comes out really hot. But what is he doing? It's like, what's the message? What's the heart behind all of it? Is, no, Jonathan, you are this person. Like, I want you to understand that you are this awesome person, and you're worried about not being this way when you are this way. And it's like angry. It's like, why is Joel so mad? Well, because something doesn't make sense. But he's showing you compassion. It's like he wants you, he cares about you. So if Joel doesn't get like upset about something doesn't make it like the true thing that you need to be worried with Joel is if he just shrugs his shoulders and goes, I care. I don't particularly care. It's like, uh-oh.
Good.
But if he's getting mad and upset about something, it's because he cares about it. And there's something that doesn't make sense in what you're saying or what somebody else is saying or what I'm saying, whatever. Because why? He wants to get through that. Like, let's get through that. Let's understand this. Because through all of that is a whole ton of fun where he's just laughing all the time. So I don't want him to fool anybody.
Yeah.
Dude, he wants to have fun. He wants somebody to come and loosen him up.
I'll tell you, man, you can tell everybody in the world this, because that's like, because you're so right. I want more people to be able to bring that, because I can feel it. I know I come in. I'll say that about myself. I come in tight in every situation I'm in. My brain is working a million miles an hour. I'm analyzing everything. And when I can feel connected to a person and give up control over that, it's like, okay, game on. Literal game. Like, let's play a game.
Let's play a game. Let's have fun. That's
Yeah.
what I think you want to be at. Yeah. It's just the best. I say that's the best Joel. Party Joel. Hang out Joel.
Oh, amazing. Like, yeah, I feel like I've got to learn a lot about you kind of like through these podcasts, but also through these interviews that we've done. And just to say from my perspective, I think you're an amazing team, like in terms of how you complement each other. And I think that you help more of each other come out in these amazing ways. But I love that. So yeah, so Jonathan, kind of like improv king, and Joel, I'm going to try and learn to appreciate your angry compassion more.
Yeah. Okay. That's what I'm going to take away from this is if Joel's angry at you, it means he cares. No. No. Sorry, that's not what he meant.
No, I know. No, but not, yeah, no, but I get that as well. I get that sense as well. Kind of like, you like to have fun, but like to teach first, right? Like help people to understand something first. Yeah.
Yep,
okay.
That's the need. It's the urgent and important thing. Understand this. Awesome. Got it.
Okay, right. Okay. So I've got two more questions. I'm going to go for both of them. So my next question is again, being at the end of this process now and looking back over these 7 seasons of these 2 amazing podcasts, what would you do differently? Like if there was something that you think looking back that could make it even better, and I say this from a point of view of I think they're amazing. I've got so much from them, but we know about growth mindset, right? So what is something that either you've learned from this or that you would do differently in terms of making these podcasts better?
I think what I would have done differently is that maybe I should have listened to more of the early podcasts, like after we did them. Like I did listen. I listened to some of it, but when it was done, I was like, it's done. Crushed it. Amazing. But I think I learned a lot about the podcast. And the improvements to make a lot through experience. I think maybe if I would have listened to a lot of them sooner and earlier on, maybe I would have been, even better at improv. So that's something that I could do. I think part of it, Joel and I were talking about this, of the, looking back on something early on and kind of getting the creeps. What did you call it, Joel? What was it?
It's the secondhand embarrassment or the cringe effect or whatever.
Yeah, where you listen to yourself and you're like, oh gosh, this guy. I wish he would stop talking and just let the smart guy talk. So much of it was, I could consider that I could have done that going backwards. And at the same time, I could see that as a benefit because literally everybody was just watching things get better and better and better over time. And I think there was a definite confidence boost that I had early on. But maybe that could have happened quicker had I done a little bit more research on how I should be a podcast host.
Yeah, this is really hard. Like, I know you're right. Like, thanks for unconsciously confronting us with the growth mindset thing. I'm seriously like, you're right. I know no matter what I do, and I preach this, so I know I need to have it in me as well. As good as I do something, there should at least be one thing you can do better, right? I feel so good about this. And to Jonathan's point, I just in the last few weeks since season 7 wrapped up, my process has been to listen to the episodes as they're being published. So we did the recording, I do the editing, and then I would re-listen to the episode the day before or the weekend before it publishes. That way, I was always in the mindset of like, I'm with the audience on this journey, right? So I wanted to be able to kind of like, because we've done so many of these, Ellie, that it's like, when you ask, it's like, what's your, like, part of the issue with like, I don't know what my favorite is because it's all a bowl of spaghetti at this point. I don't know what we said in most of these episodes. We just said so many things. But so my process has been every week I listen to the coming episodes. So what I did is after season 7 wrapped, I started listening to season 1 again. And that's what Jonathan and I were talking about. I'm like, I'm nervous to listen to season 1 because it's going to be like Scott's Tots, or it's like, be like, oh, I'm so scared to be like, oh, I'm going to listen to it and think we sucked at this. I can't believe like season 1 is just garbage. Because you hit such a groove at the end and we had such a good process. Our confidence was through the roof. Like, we can do this. We're podcasters now. But I listened a few weeks ago to season 1, episode 1, and I was like, this is a good episode. I was really surprised. I was really happy with it. It felt great. It sounded like we had already been podcasting. So, but I guess, so to answer your question, instead of telling you all the reasons why nothing needed to be changed, because it was perfect from the beginning, I would say this, what could be different? Maybe COVID not happening and kind of messing us up in the middle of season 1. I think even the way we launched this podcast, which I think was good, the way we did, we actually started on our YouTube channel before we had like a legitimate podcast hosting site. That'd be a change I'd make now. If I could go back, it's like we would have done the work we needed to do up front, build up some episodes, and then just start launching right off the bat into this podcast hosting site, which really did just make things a lot easier. It's like a lot of times we get in our heads this thought of like, because I don't know how to do this thing yet, it must be more difficult than the way we're doing it now. I know how to deal with YouTube. I don't know how to deal. Like, I'm having to do research on all these different podcast hosts. I don't know. It's like, but once you actually like pull the trigger and do that thing, you end up finding out, there's a reason there's podcast hosting sites. It makes it easier. It's all more streamlined. They do so much of the distribution for you, all that stuff. So I just wonder if we had started that way, if maybe the beginning of our podcast would have caused maybe a little bit more momentum at the very beginning. Instead, what we did is we launched a bunch of our episodes on YouTube, and then we backed into this Transistor podcast hosting site and started our launch all over again. So that'd be the change I'd make. Yeah.
Okay. I'm glad you found something there, Joel, because I know it's tough. I get it. It's tough.
It was a great podcast.
Yeah. Outstanding. Yeah. Okay. So my final question for you both before we wrap things up for today is, how are the taters?
Yeah, Apostle Tater and Pastor Rich are doing wonderful. I think that, they're really enjoying working together in the same church. They spent a lot of years apart, right? So a lot of that damage in their family has been repaired, and a lot of that repair has enabled them to be able to work in the church together with the dream, right? So both of their dreams, really. I think it was like Apostle Tater, it was always his dream to have his kid work with them, and it was Pastor Rich. I don't know if it was his dream. It was like a dream that he kind of walked into without really knowing it. It was a dream. So yeah, they're loving it. Of course, Mrs. Tater is the bomb.
Honestly, the last time you heard about the Taters was the last time we've heard from the Taters. And so, but where they ended up, well, I mean, we haven't heard anything from them. So I think that's a good thing.
Not having to go to the hospital or call 911 is a good thing, right?
Right. I think that they're just, if I had to guess, I think that they're just growing on this path, and things keep getting better. I think they know that we're always there for them if they need something, but I think because of the foundation that they have is so solid. Pastor Tater and his wife, their marriage is so good. And the church, their family has been repaired, and now they're just going forward. So I have to believe that things are amazing. And I think if they weren't, we would hear something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I just feel like they were such a special part of this journey for the listeners. Yeah, so just something that had been on my mind. So yeah, I'll just say, if Pastor Dick or Pastor Rich or Mrs. Tater is out there and wants to just give us an update on how things are going, that would be amazing, because we think of you and we love you, and you just gave so much to this podcast.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah. Good shout.
Yeah. So that's it for today, Joel and Jonathan. So I just thank you so much for meeting with me again, for answering my questions, and thank you both so much for all 7 seasons of the What the Flock and the Music of Life Church podcasts. It's been amazing. I've gained so much from it. The people that I talk to that are listeners as well, I know have gained so much from it, and I just want to thank you both so much from the bottom of my heart for these podcasts, and for meeting with me today. So thank you very much, everybody, for listening to The Truth About Mental Health. And if you've been hurt by church or psychology, you're not alone. We're here for you.